The figure at the oasis rim had not moved since first light. Kenji saw height before detail. A tall woman folded inward like a structure waiting to collapse, stone plating catching dawn on her shoulders. Her breathing was visible from 30 paces, shallow and uneven. In the desert, shallow breathing was the last argument a body made before it gave up entirely. One hand gripped the basin stone. The knuckles were pale, the grip the only remaining proof of intent. She had crawled the last stretch. The drag marks in the sand did not care about dignity. He measured the distance and his options at the same time. The cup held less water than her size demanded, but it was what he could spare. The desert had taught him that help offered wrong was still threat. He crouched low and moved slow. Her eyes tracked him before he expected, dark, clear, and angry with the effort of staying open. He set the cup where she could reach it without needing to trust him. Then he waited. The blueprint lay between them on the basin stone, charcoal lines explaining what words could not yet manage. He read the key points aloud and watched her track the detail. The offer was 3 lines: shelter, water, labor in exchange. Kenji had learned to reduce everything to 3 lines. Longer proposals got used for fire. She said nothing, but her eyes moved from the basin to the walls to the blueprint, doing the math he had already done. The contract was not charity. Kenji had no stock of charity. What he had was a problem that needed more hands. When he saw the knee, the engineering problem changed. The joint had been reset badly, or not reset at all. The swelling had locked the wrong angle in. He had fixed structure. He had never fixed a person. He made himself look at the problem the way he looked at a crooked wall. The knee had 3 separate failure modes visible from the outside. A 4th was likely. He did not say any of this aloud. She watched him study it with eyes that had already calculated everything he was calculating. She had lived inside the failure longer than he had looked at it. He pulled the measuring cord from his belt and crouched beside her leg without asking. She let him, which he understood to be permission. The numbers were precise and unkind. Circumference above the joint, below, span of the patella deviation, length of the lever arm. He said each one aloud and let her hear the count. She did not flinch at the measurements. She had probably cataloged them herself, the way prisoners mark days. When he finished, he drew the braced dimensions in the sand beside her knee. The sketch was not a comfort. It was a proposal. The architect's system rendered a blue overlay he had not requested. Load distribution, fulcrum points, mechanical advantage across the lateral joint. He studied it with the care he gave to structural problems. The design was not a cure. It was a mechanical rerouting of the failure. The joint would still hurt. It would bear weight again. He traced the contact arc with a stick, adjusting the angle twice. The system confirmed the second correction. He trusted the confirmation warily. The blueprint showed where the stress would concentrate. He would need to pad those points. Fiber cord, wound twice. He made a note beside the sketch. The scrub wood was dense enough to hold the pressure. He tested 3 pieces and discarded 1. The desert scrap heap had standards. Cutting leather required a clean edge and a steady hand. He wiped the stone knife twice and got both. The shape took 4 cuts to match the blueprint. On the first try, it was close enough to be promising, which was the kind of result that demanded improvement. He fitted the cut sections against the sketch, shadow-checking the angles. Not surgery, not carpentry, something the desert had no name for yet. The pulley arrangement was a single movable block, cord over stone spur. Crude and sufficient. He had learned to use those 2 words without apology. Tension in the lash needed to compensate for her mass without cutting into the joint. He calculated the force by holding the cord and estimating her weight through the resistance in her grip earlier. He ran the cord through 3 attachment points and pulled slowly, watching the brace shape respond. The load distributed wrong on the first test. He retied the anchor. The second pull held the angle true. He knotted the cord off and stared at what he had made. It was ugly. It would work. When he brought the brace to her leg, she turned her head. Not from pain, he thought. From something older than pain. He fitted it in sections, explaining each step before making contact. The explanation cost him nothing and gave her the geometry of what was coming. She flinched once, sharply, when the lateral support found the swelling. He held position and waited. She breathed. He continued. When the laces were tied, she looked at the brace the way a person looks at something that has changed the terms of their situation. She said, "Water?" and the word was dry enough to have been stored for weeks. He refilled the cup from the still and brought it without ceremony. One small thing rendered correctly was worth more than a speech. She held the cup herself this time. Both hands. The grip was a declaration of something, if he chose to read it that way. He chose not to read it that way yet. There was still work to do, and reading declarations cost attention he could not spare. She offered to hold the cord without being asked. The offer was small and geometric and changed the day completely. She understood instinctively that holding a cord steady was not menial work. It was precision work that freed the other person to think. He handed her the far end, and they measured the next wall section in silence, which was better than talking. The second measurement matched the first within a thumb's width. He made no comment. She had not done it for a comment. The blue system marker appeared at the edge of his vision. Population 2. The number was small enough to be ironic. 2 people did not constitute a settlement. They constituted a liability. Kenji had learned that the system was optimistic, and he was its corrective. Still, the number hadn't moved. The domain had registered her presence without consulting either of them. He noted the change and moved on. The system counted people. Engineering counted what people could build before the next threat arrived. By mid-afternoon, both silhouettes sat inside the same shade. Neither had arranged it deliberately. The geometry had arrived on its own. She leaned against the brace-side wall with the caution of someone who had learned to distrust any comfort that hadn't been tested. He sat 2 arm lengths away, eating from the ration cloth, watching the dune line. The distance was respectful and tactical in equal measure. 2 shadows and 1 shade. The shelter had enough geometry for both of them, and geometry did not require conversation. The bandage work came after the meal, when the light had softened enough for close work. He unwound fresh fiber cord and began. She looked at the far wall during the whole procedure. He found this reasonable. There was no requirement that she trust him while he helped her. His hands moved methodically, pressure, wrap, check. The knee responded with the small resistance of something that had held pain alone for a long time. When he tied off the last wrap, she still hadn't looked at him. He accepted this as a professional outcome and cleaned his hands. She stood on it the next morning before he was ready to watch. He turned when he heard the wood creak under weight. The first step was a controlled fall forward. The second was an adjustment. The third was a step. Her face registered the pain with the precision of someone keeping a separate ledger from the one on her face. She walked to the basin rim, turned, walked back. 8 steps. Kenji counted them because counting was the only way he knew to honor something without making it awkward. The architect's system awarded the EXP bonus labeled First Gift Structure, Medical Aid. He did not know the system had a category for this. The blue notification was brief and factual. He found the brevity appropriate. The brace was not a gift. It was an engineering solution with a human application. The experience total climbed in the blue margin of his vision. More tools, more blueprints, more capacity. The system's arithmetic was its own kind of enthusiasm. He acknowledged the bonus the way he acknowledged a successful mortar cure. Noted, logged, moved to the next problem. She ate with concentration, not pleasure. The ration was dried root paste on bark, and it asked nothing of taste. He watched her pace without appearing to watch. She ate like someone who had recently learned not to trust that food would still be there if she looked away. He had laid out a second ration without comment before sitting. If she noticed the gesture, she gave no sign. He preferred it that way. When she finished, she folded the bark and set it aside. The orderliness was reflexive, the habit of someone who had lived in spaces where mess became dangerous. When he draped the shade cloth over her sleeping frame, he moved with the care of a person handling something that would shatter if surprised. She had not asked for it. He had not offered. The night temperature had made the argument, and he had simply responded. He anchored the cloth's edge with 2 stones, checked that her breathing was even, and returned to the fire without looking back. In the morning, the cloth was folded precisely where he had laid it, corners aligned. He pretended not to notice. She pretended not to notice him noticing. They stood at the sunken eyes rim together for the first time, and the basin looked different with 2 sets of eyes upon it. He explained the water table, the filtration layers, the burn plan. She listened without nodding, which was her way of paying full attention. She pointed to a low shelf of stone along the eastern wall that he had marked as drainage risk. She traced an arc that improved the berm angle by 12 degrees. He looked at her calculation, then at the basin, then back. He changed the drawing. She said nothing about the change. At dawn, she was already standing at the basin edge when he emerged. The brace had held through the night. The wrap at the lateral joint was slightly looser from the cool contraction. He noted it but said nothing. She would tell him if the fit needed correction. The morning light laid their 2 shadows side by side across the basin sand. Neither shadow was smaller for sharing the ground. She slept with her back to the shelter wall, the brace resting in the sand, and one hand loosely open. The stone back had come to the sunken eye, and it had decided, for now, to stay.